All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the very last New Year's Indie Book Blitz panel for 2023/2024. We've saved one of the most fun panels for last, the historical and time travel fantasy with Angela and Mike. Welcome. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. We've been chatting a little bit before we went live, and I think we got through some of the initial nerves for this. But it's so good to have you guys on. Mike has been on before. Angela is brand new. So,
I
Angela,
am.
I'm going to let you kick us off with telling us a little bit just about yourself, what kind of books you write, how that historical time travel fits into it.
Okay. I'm Angela Board. I write kind of it's epic historical fantasy with usually some romantic storylines. I was a SPIFO 5 finalist, and my SPIFO 5 book is was Fortune's Fool, which is a Renaissance inspired world, and I know you see metal arm, so mercenaries. Sometimes people call it Private Lives of Mercenaries. It's like my genre. But and my other series is the Rye Ascendant series with Through Dreams So Dark, which you can see that behind me too, which is a little bit more on the strictly historical. The Atarian Empire series is a little bit more inspired, kind of like quarter turn to the fantastic kind of. And then the Rye Ascendant series is more kind of genre bending, I guess. It's portal, kind of urban paranormal. It starts out in 1988 with the son of Russian defectors, and it goes quickly into an epic fantasy world, and there will be some kind of timey-wimey stuff along the way. But that's me.
And just like that, your Doctor Who fandom has been outed.
Oh, yeah. From way back. Old school, too. So
Yes,
I grew up
yes.
with Doctor Who.
Which was your first Doctor?
Well, on the PBS station that we watched it on, it was Tom Baker.
Me too!
Yeah.
Yay!
So, but then they ran out of episodes, and we were lucky enough, but they went back and they got like all of them from like the first Doctor on. So,
Yes.
yeah, I'm a nerd.
Mike, how about you? Are you a Doctor Who fan?
I am not. My brother is. He's tried many, many times to get me to do it, and it's just the sibling rivalry. He likes it, therefore I must hate it. So I've watched 10 minutes maybe, so I don't even know that I get to make a decision on it or not. But he loves it, swears by it, tells me at least once a month I need to watch it. So I will not. If he dies first, then maybe I'll watch it afterwards because he'll never know. But that's the only way.
Well, I think there's a big difference between the old Doctor Who's and the new ones.
Oh, yeah.
Too. Like the new ones have such a different feel and storytelling style. I always felt like the old ones was like a time traveling Sherlock Holmes with
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It was
I
a
don't
little bit
know.
more. They
And
didn't have any
it was
special effects, so
like nowadays they keep most characters alive, spoilers, in some way, in some dimension. But I remember back when you would watch Tom Baker, you'd be like, oh, they're like unalived.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Or all the Peter Davison ones, which some of those were sad, like
Oh, yeah.
seriously sad, and you're like, "No, I can't take this anymore. This is too emotional." But then, there'd be like a weird guy in a like rubber suit that would come out, and you're like, "Okay, it's okay now." Yeah, it's like, but now the special effects and they got put on Disney, and now there's like CGI and the symphony backgrounds, which are weird to me. Like, like this is not my doctor. I don't know how if I can deal with
Oh my
this.
doctor. Yeah, I don't think you ever forget your first Doctor.
No.
But, so now that we've thoroughly established our sci-fi time travel fandom here, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and your books for those who haven't met you on the channel before, and how the time travel history plays into your books.
Okay, I'm Mike Molman, and a little bit obnoxious. You can see my books. Oops, here over top my head. I have them over here on the side, and just in case that's not enough, I brought copies with me. So yeah, I've written 3 books. They're Celtic inspired, and they take place 300 BC England. So, and I'm here because I really did my best to research 300 BC England, and they're a pre-literate society, so that's fun. Um, but yeah, I wanted to do it before the Romans because the Romans are boring. They come in, they win, or if they lose, they just come back and then they win. And I was like, no, we're not doing the Romans. We're pre-Roman. I'll tell my story and then be done before the Romans ever get there. So that's why I chose. I chose when I decided to do this. I was like, there are so many medieval fantasies. I'm like, what is mine going to do? I'm like, I want to be something different. So I actually thought about going to the Renaissance, and I was like, oh, but there's so much I have to learn. If I go earlier, there's not much there, so I can take what I can find and then make up the rest, and I'm fine. So
just enough research.
Yeah, that's why I made mine like not our world, so I could make stuff up. I'm just
nice.
like, I don't,
Smart.
like that. I'm just going to change it. I can do that. I'm a fantasy author. So
We had an author on the historical sci-fi, the historical and time travel sci-fi panel, and she said it actually ended up sending her back to college, and she ended up with a new degree because she over researched into something. I was like, whoa, slippery slope right there.
well, it's fun. Like I like researching, like I mean, right, nerd credentials, but it can get. I know I was writing Fortune's Fool, and you get into like there's a lot of silk production, and I must have watched a million videos on traditional silk production. Like I could still watch more, but at some point I'm writing this, I'm like, but it's supposed to be a secondary world, and where's the like difference? Why don't I just set it in the Renaissance, and not just that I'm lazy and would need to get too many of the details right and to put it there. Then so that's why there are like giant silk moths in my book that make like certain like the burgundy silk and stuff. So it was one of those things where at some point I thought, okay, I either have to do more research and like actually make it historical or make it fantasy, like make stuff up. So
You're smart. You can make that determination.
I've been working on that book so long. I'm like, I'm just going to throw some giant silk moths in. It's fun.
Yeah. So sort of speaking about that research, and Mike, I'm going to let you sort of start us on this one. To what extent do you feel like you've tried to stay true to the historical facts versus what you've taken and reimagined into the fantasy or the science fantasy aspect of the stories?
So for book 1, absolutely everything. And I mean, again, they were pre-literate. There's not a lot of information out there, so it's not too constricting. But and Katherine, I know you've read my books. The first book, I have every chapter. I have the day, and I have the month, and I have the and is it the dark half or the light half of the year? And then because I'm an idiot, the Celtic days started at sunset. So I'd be writing, going, wait, what time of year is it? Is the sun up? Is it down? What day is it? Oh my God, all these things just don't matter. And so after my first book, I'm like, you know what? We're throwing that calendar away. We're not going to ever do that again. Because I'd like, oh wait, they're eating dinner, but it's December, so that means the sun went down. So I'm like, oh God, got to change the dates. And then I'd have to go back to my spreadsheet, and then okay, everything gets bumped a day, and oh no, never again. So I get told all the time by my brothers and by Roe Bushy, who's my editor, that it's fantasy. You don't have to be exact. And I always tell them, you know what? When you read fantasy, you have to suspend your disbelief. In my books, people are going to be changing the animals and back, and making elementals, what have you. You have to suspend your disbelief for that. But the rest of the stuff, I want to get it right. Mm-hmm. To the point where the plants that they use, I researched Wikipedia. like Yarrow will stop bleeding. Fine, I'll use Yarrow, but then I'm me, so I'm like, Yarrow is an Anglo-Saxon word. I can't use that. They came after the Celts. And so then I look at, okay, it's also called thousand leaf. Okay, I'll call it thousand leaf, and I just give it a. But I mean, everything they use in there's pseudoscience behind it.
Mm.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I make stuff up too, right? Like if I can't find something, I'll make it up. But I had an editor tell me the same thing too. Like if you, especially since I write about like the things that fantasy readers often will catch people on, like horses,
No.
ships, guns.
Yep.
So, like all the things, right? So, but yeah, I mean, but I hadn't thought of it that way until she explained it. She's like, look, like that has to be realistic in order for the magic to seem like, okay, yeah, we could believe that. Like we trust you because you have taken care with the little details of the things that we know about. And therefore we're going to just, trust you on the weird metal arm that she's got that grows into her shoulder, so.
Yeah. And I like that how unique that is with Angela, you having yours set sort of in your own world, but still maintaining some of the research, maintaining some of that accuracy. And Mike, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when I read your books, I'm like on Google going, what is thousand leaf herb? Like, I should know what this is, but I don't. And I feel so much smarter after I read some of these books.
So, like I said, I probably go too far, but I'm a chemist by training. I like research. I like data. My brother laughs at me all the time. He's like, "Oh, you're in a good mood. You must have been using it on one of your spreadsheets." And I'm like, "Yes."
See, my only thing is, will it help? What will help me turn into a tawny owl? That's what I want to know. Goodness. So, talking about our books and the settings and everything, let's talk a little bit about the main characters that we follow through them, especially on, like, I know that there's not necessarily time travel in everybody's books, but how does the historical or time travel element change how you've written them versus, like, if they were just a character you wrote in a fantasy where you made up everything about them, was there something in your research that changed the way they acted, changed the way they like handled their situation?
I'll go. For me, again, because I like to limit myself all the time, I do not. Last thing I do before I publish a book is I check. I can't use minutes or seconds or hours because they didn't have those. I can't use inches, feet, yards. So I have the city walls were as tall as a birch tree because, what measurement did they use? Who knows? They're pre-literate, but to me, it would pop me out of the story if I'm reading about these Celts and all of a sudden they're like 72.4 centimeters, so I just measurement. I do have days and weeks and months, years, but I don't do anything else. And it's just, and I'm forever. I mean, I just caught one today. I'm going to hit publish today after this is over. And I just found like, this guy said, wait a minute. I'm like, that's nonsensical. So halt for a moment, please, something, but that is always and I noticed Joe Abercrombie and I love hate with Joe Abercrombie, but he also does the same thing. He doesn't use feet or inches or time because, why would that be the same in his world? So to me, it's picking up on the little stuff like that. And I keep running in fear that someone's going to go, well, you use this word. And so I always do my search. That's the last thing I do, but that's what I can contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I just went down because I'm doing line edits on the sequel to Fortune's Fool. And I just went down a measurement rabbit hole, which was really interesting because in Renaissance Italy, the measurements that they use could change by town. So it would be like one town might use like, one thing, and then they all had different names. And so you had to do like all this sort of conversions. And that was like one of the things that spurred the development of algebra was trying to convert between all these measurements. And I'm like, I just want to know. Like, he pulls his dagger out of the sheath a few inches. How do you say that? How would he think that? He's not going to use inches. I still don't know exactly so I just like cut it out entirely. I just like, he just grabbed the hilt.
He flashed them a glint of metal.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm saying. Rapist glimpse.
Right, exactly. I mean, stuff like that can really, I don't know, it trips me up. But when I'm writing it, like, I don't know if it trips readers up so much, but I like, get the stickler for that. And that, I don't know, that question is hard, I think, for Kira, who's in a secondary world, because I have a degree in anthropology. And so when I'm thinking about making stuff, like, I think of it kind of anthropologically, like I try to get the worldview through them. And so, like, that world is it's Renaissance inspired, but I felt like I could take a lot of liberties with it. And I used a lot of like vibes, basically, like when it's, so I took the classical being rediscovered kind of vibe, and the fact that they're, in Italy, it's, there's like ruins everywhere of the ancient world, and kind of took that and and built on that. But in the Rye Ascendant series, that's a lot more where the main character is Russian. His family escaped from the Soviet Union. It's 1988. And then there's all this magic weird stuff, like he sees things that he calls, like, they're like not things that other people don't see, like rats and bugs, not rats, not bugs, like, he like hyphenates them. And there's that layer that's in there. But also I really wanted to get all of the culture right in the history. And that changed, that's a huge part of the book, is his history of escaping, and then his mother supposedly died on the way, but the whole book is centered on the fact that she might not really be dead. And so he's trying to figure that out, and that leads him off on this whole thing. And I can read Russian, Cyrillic. I can read the alphabet, and I know like just enough words to be really dangerous. So I actually had a Russian sensitivity reader to read it, but I was really trying to get in his head and figure out, like, I read a lot of memoirs, and memoirs to me are so much better than anything else. And that's, you don't have any memoirs, Mike. That's hard,
The owls kept all the memoirs.
I will tell you that there are exactly 2 paragraphs about Celts. And when Agricola, I think that's the Roman general who went to kill all the Druids, the ones he said they all lined up and they all were wearing white robes. So I was like, robes. Okay, yeah. Everybody, they wear white robes. And then I had to tell my artist, it can't be bleached white. They didn't have bleach then. Think of linen. Yeah. How about linen? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that actually this book I have a book coming out in 2 weeks, and the one character goes through a rope house, and I'd never heard of this, never knew of it, and I went down such a rabbit hole reading about rope houses and how rope is made and how it's spun, and I'm like, man, I want to have like 3 chapters on this rope house now, but no one will appreciate that but me. So I did it like 2 paragraphs.
Like fun stuff in that I found in my, like I wanted to have and it didn't make it into the first draft of Fortune's Full of a silk, like the weaving, the like fact. And then fortunately, when I was revising it, I figured out a way to have a sword fight in a silk factory. That was fun. But like, it's like, some stuff like that just hits you, when you're reading through it, and you're like, that is awesome. And it will be in my book. I don't care how. Like,
yep.
we hit those scenes. Like I think I've said on a previous panel that I cut a pickling scene out of The Bow That Twisted Fate, where I just went way into the weeds with here is exactly how they pickled all their harvest that they brought in early and canned and dried. And my husband, I remember, put it down and was like, okay, I should not be able to walk away from your fantasy and literally know how to can and pickle and dry
I don't know.
produce. So like,
I,
okay, I cut it out. So now it's like 2 paragraphs. And before it was like 2 pages. It's like, oh,
I did.
okay.
I did cut out a lot of silk description from, and there's still a lot in there though. I mean, people ask me, is that all real? Did you make it? I was like, no, the silk stuff is mostly real. That's mostly stuff I got from my research. Except for the fingernails. I got that kind of inspired by a book I can't find anymore. It was historical fiction of where the women who would pull apart the cocoons had really long fingernails to do it because they would pick it apart. And I thought that was super cool. And so I was like, I put that in there. And then I was like, maybe I should go figure out if I didn't hallucinate that, because I'm pretty sure, and I can't find it anymore. But so I write fantasy, so it's okay.
There you go. So you're just super creative.
Right. Anyway, I liked it. It was fun. And it worked into the plot too. So.
Oh, goodness. Mike, we haven't heard much about your plot, and I'm very intrigued at this point to know who is the main character of the story. Yeah, what are we into?
So Grommy is the main character. He is a druid apprentice, and originally he was going to be based off of my personality, but then I figured that'd be boring. So then I said, no, he's in his early 20s, and he excels at making really poor decisions.
Oh, the best protagonists.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
He does grow. Spoilers, but yeah.
They just need to take a course in making decisions. They're bad at it.
So I'll tell you just a little bit of a spoiler. In my first book, there's a scene where he goes into a mead hall, just unassuming, and by the end, the whole mead hall is burnt to the ground. And it is my absolute favorite scene I've ever written, because it's just a series of, well, you didn't have to do that, but since you did, and it's just one thing after another, and a horde of rats come, and the thatch roof collapses into the fire, and oh my God. And I had this in Andrew Wizardly Reads, booktuber. He's like, that didn't have to happen. I was so angry that there's no reason for that to happen. I'm like, it is my favorite scene because it's logical. It's poorly thought out by the main character, but oh my goodness, that is. So anyway, he goes on his quest, my book, since you asked. And he's given a quest by his mentor, who's not exactly honest with him. He's a little Dumbledore-ish. You learn at the end that they're ulterior motives. And then, he ends up going and forgetting to tell someone this or alienating somebody there. And then one thing turns to another, it gets worse and worse. And he's ended up fleeing for his life with multiple people out there trying to catch and or kill him. Yeah. Basically, the wheels fall off and he has to deal with his many, many bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And then it grows from there. The second book, Sins and Sorrows, is actually, because I write first person present tense and my series is an epic, and there's so many things that have to happen, and I don't want to go Greek tragedy and go, these amazing things happened off stage. So I'm just taking side characters and they're all getting their own 100-page story to talk about these amazing things that are no longer off stage. So, but yes, expect bad things to fall upon whoever my protagonist is.
Stories, though, I mean,
they are so good. But I was literally so upset. My favorite character, who nobody knows because I haven't said that on any video. I've been very careful to not say who my favorite is. My favorite character is unalived by the end of one of the ones I read recently, and I was like, "How could you do this to me?" Like, my favorite character is just gone.
I was on a panel once, and the author said that a person came up to him and said, I know your main character is going to live because it's a main character. It's told through their point of view, so they can't die. So, where's the suspense? And he's like, challenge accepted. And so he said, I've written 8 books now. In 3 of my 8 books, the main character dies. You have to read them to find out which ones. And I was like, huh, I can abuse my reader this way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ouch.
They're still worth reading. For what it's worth, I would still recommend them, even though my favorite character doesn't make it to the big finale of whatever's coming. Yeah. So how about you, Angela? Do you unalive main characters or main side characters? You don't have to tell us which one.
Well, no, I do unalive a few people, but not the main character. Well, so the joke is that in my books, sometimes nobody's really dead. Nobody's really unalive. You have to, even if they seem to be, because like the Fortune's Fool starts out and one of the main characters, actually, a lot of my books start out where a character seems to be unalive and they don't believe it, and so they, chaos ensues. But I do the Rye Ascendant series probably has more of that, the actual characters going away than Fortune's Fool does, the Atarian Empire.
All right. So we got to know a little bit about your books and left really intrigued. Everybody who's watching live can go grab them at the description box links. But what is coming up in 2024? So Mike, you've slipped that you've got some stuff coming in the next few weeks, but you're a very busy writer. You participated in the self-published fantasy blog off this year, Spiffbo, and we have Spiff Box coming up, the 10th year of it this year. So are you planning to participate again this year? What are you writing? What events do you have? What's going on?
So I will not be in Spiff Box. The first story I wrote was a coming of age sci-fi set on Mars in like the 24th century. My brother calls the main character the happy little psychopath. So I wrote that for 3.5 years, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to set this down. I'm going to write a fantasy just to clear my head, just as a fun aside. Then I'll go right back to this sci-fi. And I've now published 4 books in that fantasy series, and the sci-fi book is still sitting there very lonely. So after my 4th fantasy book, Desperate Dispatches, is coming out 2 weeks from tomorrow. And then I'm going to go back to my sci-fi book, which is atrociously written, and I won't let anyone look at it. I think the plot is fine, but I was terrible as a writer. So I'll fix that up. I'm trying to get that in for the Spiffbo equivalent for sci-fi, but those are due in August, so it has to be out by August if I want to be in that contest. So that is next up for me. I've also decided my series is set like year 820. And what happened was in year 1, all 5 of the elder races that lived on England got up and left because they were just so annoyed with the humans and said, you have 1,000 years to figure it out or kill yourselves, whichever. See ya. So I'm actually going back and I'm writing each of the 5 elder races. Here's a story about the pixies and what was the straw that broke the camel's back that made them want to leave. And I'm going to just write those in the between times when I don't feel like writing what I need to write. And then as I get them done, it should be novellas. I'll probably bundle them together, and that'll just be another book that I'm not actually putting on my calendar as I'm working on this explicitly. But that's just kind of I need a break. I'll do a fun write. I'm going to try to do those. So that's my year.
Awesome. That's not a little at all, or a lot at all there, just all the writing and the entries, and yeah, it's exciting. So, Angela, how about you? Brand new gear? What new goals have you got?
Well, I guess so. I have a novella right now in Sphinx in the indie novella competition that Dragon Meets in Sphinx right now. It's a semifinalist, so that one's gonna. I don't even know when it's gonna end, but because I don't know, dates kind of slip my mind sometimes, but that one's there. And I am finally going to release Fool's Promise, which is the book 2 in the Tyrian Empire series, the sequel to Fortune's Fool. That book has given me a lot of trouble, but I've got it going now, and it's hopefully I don't have a release date for it, but it's just going to be as soon as I can do it, and it's going to be, you know, I write big chunky books, so it's going to be another big chunky book. And but then hopefully I am working on a few other novellas, so hopefully I'll get another novella in that series out by the end of the year. I you know, it's about halfway written right now, and I was just kind of doing it for fun, and hopefully I'll get it finished. And then as far as the Rye Ascendant series goes, I was also doing a kind of in between novellas with that series, and I'm kind of thinking, because this book ended up being like way too big, that I might actually and this is not you know, like, it's nothing official yet, but I'm thinking of some way that I can maybe cut it up and like issue, you know, like release it in pieces, and then go on to do like the novella. It's a collection of novellas with kind of a side character in that, and then I have I'm taking make I have like a base manuscript I'm cutting up, which was kind of like a zero draft for that. So there's more written there, but I have to take it and like make it hook up to this one. So I don't know. Hopefully at least 2 books out, maybe some stuff with the Rye Ascendant series. But I have a bunch of kids, so I kind of don't make release dates until I have I have like the book in my hands, and I'm like, yes, I can get this out. So
yes, that is very, very wise. As Mike knows, I shared on his channel the painful lesson that I learned in 2023 in February. I had put out book 1 of Lord's Gambit series, which is a dark epic fantasy. It's not in any way related to historical or time travel, but this is more of just a writers in general beware, I guess. And then February I put out Monk of Death, which is volume 2. Volume 3 was set to come out in March. So as soon as I pushed out volume 2, I went to upload the file for volume 3, and the file was corrupted. And then I went back to my original file, and my file was corrupted. And then I went to the flash drive where I backed it up, and the file was corrupted. And I asked my husband to go get his, and the file was corrupted. And I was like,
oh my gosh, that's
I have
terrifying.
No book.
That's like a horror story.
Yeah.
And it was a full-length novel for an epic. It's like 80,000 words. And I'm going, I can't. I've got 2 weeks to rewrite. And I did give it my best effort. I got about 5 chapters into the rewrite, and I burned out. Wow. And so then it just pushed me. I was like, I'm going to accept defeat. I'm going to wave the white flag. The book deserves better than this. The readers deserve better than this. Pause the rest of the releases, and have spent this year trying to get back in the groove, finish it up, finish rewriting. The good news is, okay, 5 and 6 are already done. It's like 4, 5, and 6 are done. So I just got to get through
3.
But yeah, after that, I was like, okay, now I've got, you know, these other places where I save, and I email a copy to my sister. I'm like, open this copy and make sure it works, and like save these things so that way it's safe somewhere. But yeah, now it's like I've got books in the works that I hope to put out in 2024, but I'm not going to announce any dates until the file has been uploaded into the publishing stuff, and then I can be like, yes, now there is this date. Go pre-order. The file is uploaded. It will definitely go through this time.
Wow, that's scary.
Katherine, can I just add, because my mind just connected? I wrote a novella for an anthology. The anthology is inspired by Jules Verne. I'm like, okay, what else? They're like, no, that's it. Inspired by Jules Verne, go. So I wrote that, and it takes place after my first novel, the one set on Mars. And so it's going to be a race to see which one comes out first, the novella that comes out after the novel, or if the novel will make it first, who knows? They haven't given me a date on that, but I will also be in an anthology, hopefully. They haven't told me they hated it, so I'm assuming I'm going to be in, but who knows? But that's coming sometime down the pike as well. So
so excited. And of course, you've got yours backed up, so I'm sure. The moral of the lesson at the end of this book. Back up your work, people. Back up your work.
No, I'm gonna go back mine up a few extra times now.
I do check every time now, Catherine. I'm like, okay, before I do this, let's make sure. I know somebody who had this nightmare scenario happen, and I don't want people in 3 states over hearing me scream. So
I think it was more just the hang the head in absolute silence. It's like, just watch me melt away. Because as an editor, I always tell people all the time, back up your work, back up your work. I've got a copy of your work, but it's just from what I did. So make sure you back up your work, and I can send you your copy if you lose it. And I keep it until their book comes out. And then I'm like, okay, now they don't need this copy anymore. But it's just like, please, please, please back up your work. I don't want anybody to get through this. But yeah, so thank y'all so much for coming on. This has been a really fun live talking about researching and the characters and the world and everything.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
It's my pleasure. Mike also has a YouTube channel where Mike also interviews authors pretty much every week, right? Is it every week?
Yep, every Thursday usually. I mean, we can change it because Ro and I, 2 of us do it. We're both Gen X guys in our 50s, so we don't do anything. We have plenty of time in the evening, so. But we try to put it out Thursdays unless we have to accommodate somebody. And Angela, I want to talk to you later because I'm always looking for guests.
I would love to.
Yeah. It's a good fun. A book and a beverage.
It sounds good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's good fun. If you're watching and you've been like, no, I don't want this to be the last Blitz panel that I watched this year, I have a whole playlist for the Blitz. There are over 20 different Blitz lives included. Wow. You can go to my channel, and that's all been between like Friday and today. We've had mystery authors on, we've had horror authors on, we've had sci-fi and fantasy and all these different subgenres. So you can find books that you probably don't need, but that you really do want for the New Year's reading list in the Blitz. But thank you all so much for joining. Have a lovely day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.